Tonight's story is about 3 ordinary travelers in an extraordinary land. A land where the clouds sometimes whisper secrets, rivers remember your name, and each decision you make echoes far beyond what you can see. But more than that, it's a tale about courage, about choosing to shine instead of shrinking, and about how sacred things must be treated with wonder. It's a story for anyone who's ever felt unsure, for anyone who wants to make a difference, and for everyone learning to walk with faith, even when the path sometimes disappears beneath their feet. So close your eyes and come with me to a place where the sky leans close and listens to the magical, mysterious Valley of Featherwind. In the small treetop village of Brindlefern, the skies had warned of a storm for 3 days straight, yet the winds refused to blow. The clouds gathered, heavy and dark, but never spoke a word. The people waited nervously, because in Brindlefern, storms always meant something was about to change. The village elder, Master Thornwick, stood on the highest platform each morning, squinting at the sky through his silver spectacles. "Peculiar," he muttered, stroking his long, smooth beard. "The clouds are full of rain, but they hold their breath." Under the moss-draped limbs of the central tree, 3 friends met in secret. There was Charlotte, quick-footed and curious, who asked questions faster than anyone could answer. Her copper hair caught every stray beam of sunlight, and her eyes sparkled with the kind of mischief that usually led to adventure. Then came Theo, strong and thoughtful, who could build almost anything with his hands but said little with his mouth. His fingers were always stained with wood polish or ink from the maps he loved to study. And finally, there was little Mia, who barely reached Charlotte's elbow, but always carried her notebook of dreams. She saw things others missed, the way shadows danced differently before important moments. "I think the clouds are watching us," whispered Mia. "They're waiting for someone to do something brave." Charlotte raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" Mia flipped open her notebook and pointed to a drawing she'd sketched during a vivid dream. It showed a distant valley with floating stones and silver-leafed trees that shimmered with inner light. Above it, someone had scribbled in bold, starry ink, "The place where voices walk." Charlotte squinted. "Featherwind? That's just a legend." But Theo, silent until then, finally spoke. "My grandfather once said Featherwind was real, but only the faithful find it. He said it appears when the world needs witnesses." That night, as the clouds pressed lower against the treetops, Charlotte couldn't sleep. She stared at the wooden ceiling above her hammock, listening to the silent thunder. Then, softly, something brushed her window. A moth, larger than any she'd ever seen, with wings the size of maple leaves. Its wings shimmered with soft symbols that seemed to shift and change as she watched, glowing faintly like scripture written in moonlight. Charlotte opened the window and the moth flitted to her shoulder. She didn't scream. Somehow it felt like a message had arrived. The symbols on the moth's wings slowly pulsed and rearranged until she could read them. Do not bury your spark beneath fear. The world grows dim when lights hide in shadows. Speak, walk, shine. The valley awaits those who choose courage over comfort. A thrill ran through her. This wasn't a dream. This was a call. The next morning, the storm clouds still hadn't moved. Charlotte told Mia and Theo everything. Mia clapped excitedly and hugged her notebook like a long-lost friend. Theo just looked at the sky and said, "Then we should go. Today." "But we don't even know where Featherwind is," Charlotte protested. "Then we listen," said Mia, "and we walk." They didn't ask permission. They didn't pack maps. They brought only what mattered. 3 days' food, one compass that spun in 3 directions at once, and Mia's dream notebook. Before they left, Charlotte's little brother tugged her hand. "What if it's scary?" he whispered. She knelt and smiled. "If we're faithful, we won't be alone." The path twisted down from brindle fern into a world they had never seen. Within hours, the trees became leaner, the air cooler, carrying scents of distant mountains. And soon they found themselves before a river that bent like a question mark. There were no bridges, no stones to step across. Theo scratched his head. "There's no way around." Charlotte looked at the current, fast, silver, and full of humming bubbles. Strange symbols occasionally surfaced in the foam before dissolving back into the flow. "I think it wants to speak." Mia bent low and dipped her fingers in the water. Instead of cold, warmth spread up her arm. And suddenly, the river whispered, not with sound, but with thought. "He that is faithful and endureth shall overcome the world." It was a scripture Mia had once read during a thunderstorm. Her fingers tingled. The river parted, just long enough for them to pass. Beyond the river lay a meadow filled with tall grass that shimmered purple in the fading light. In the center stood a creature, neither bird nor beast. Its form shifted slightly as they watched, sometimes appearing as a great owl with star-filled eyes, sometimes as a fox with silver fur. Its eyes reflected everything at once: sky, fear, memory. Even the moth with its glowing wings. It spoke without moving. "Why have you come?" Charlotte stepped forward. "To find Featherwind." The creature cocked its head. And what will you do if I tell you it doesn't exist? Theo clenched his jaw. Then we keep walking. Why? It asked softly. Because faith walks even when the road disappears. The creature smiled and burst into feathers. A gust of wind carried the feathers eastward. The path returned beneath their feet. At dusk, they entered a field where every step stirred echoes, laughter, prayers, soft songs, even regrets. Charlotte froze. She heard her own voice from years ago, whispering a secret promise she never kept. Mia grabbed her hand. This place remembers everything, good and bad. The field stretched before them like a living museum of human experience. Wildflowers grew in clusters, each bloom holding the memory of someone's joy. Theo stopped walking. Then we should only speak things worth remembering. The field stilled, and in that quiet, the wind whispered, "Speak of sacred things with care." They continued now silently, with reverence for every word that passed their lips. By morning, they reached the edge of Featherwind. It looked just as Mia had drawn it. Silver trees, floating stones, rivers of starlight winding between hills that curved like sleeping giants. But there was no grand gate, no sign, only a single stone with this inscription: "Faith is not given for proof, but for progress. Signs follow the faithful, they do not lead them." Charlotte touched the stone. Immediately the floating rocks shifted into a staircase. They climbed. Each step glowed briefly beneath their feet, fading behind them, lighting only what was next. At the top of the stone staircase lay a hall of crystallized mist. Soft shapes moved in and out, echoes of travelers, some uncertain, others glowing. They were greeted by an old woman who seemed to be made of moonlight and wood smoke. Her hair flowed like silver water, and her eyes held the depth of centuries. "You made it," she said simply. "So few do." Mia stepped forward. "Why were we called?" The woman pointed to their chests, where small lights now glowed through their clothing. "To remind the world how to carry light." Then she placed her hand on Charlotte's shoulder. "Do not hide what was never meant to be buried. Speak the truth. Shine in dark places, even if you tremble." She gestured toward a balcony overlooking the entire valley. From there, they could see the full scope of Featherwind. Cities of light, gardens where flowers bloomed in response to laughter, libraries where books wrote themselves as readers gained wisdom. "This is what the world becomes when enough hearts choose light," the woman explained. one conversation at a time, one act of courage at a time, one light refusing to be hidden at a time. When they left Featherwind, the clouds above Brindlefern finally began to weep. A soft rain washed the village clean. The people gathered as Charlotte, Theo and Mia stepped onto the high root platform. They told of the river that whispered, the field of memory, and the stones that floated only for the faithful. They spoke of the woman made of moonlight, who reminded them that faith was not the absence of fear, but the presence of love. Some scoffed, some wept, but all listened, and the storm at last cleared. In the days that followed, small changes began to appear throughout Brindlefern. Children began drawing impossible things with confident hands. Adults found themselves humming forgotten songs. And sometimes, on clear nights, travellers would report seeing a distant valley where silver trees caught their own inner light. But only the faithful could find the path. Faith is a path that lights one step at a time. Sometimes it means speaking even when your voice shakes. Sometimes it means walking forward when the world offers no map. Testimonies, like treasures, are not meant to be buried in fear. They are meant to shine in the valleys, echo through the fields, and cross rivers that whisper God's promises. The Lord is with the faithful always. He sees your weakness and walks with you anyway. He lets you choose, then gently whispers, I am here. So tonight and tomorrow and always, speak light, walk faithfully, and when the clouds gather and the wind stills, remember the Valley of Featherwind and keep walking. As you drift off to sleep, think about the spark of faith that lives inside you. What treasure has God placed in your heart? Is it a story, a truth, a quiet kindness? This week, don't hide your light. Look for small ways to share it with your voice, your choices, and your courage. And remember, you are never walking alone. He is with the faithful, always. Good night, and keep shining.